Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of the Bison video blog. We're back together. I know the Izzo jinx scared you away and scared everybody away from me from going to Sioux Falls. We're back in studio along with Jeff Kolpack. I'm Dom Izzo. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you, and apparently you're no longer welcome in Sioux Falls, NDSU fans.
Especially since the Bison won a couple games.
Although I'll say this, I don't think it's a jinx. I'll let you off the hook in this regard. I just don't think they were good enough to win the previous few years.
I appreciate you letting me off the hook like that. We are less than a week away from spring football getting underway, which certainly it feels like it outside, you know,
yeah,
with snow on the ground still. As NDSU will probably mess with its schedule a little bit. We'll visit with Craig Bolt tomorrow and get some actual dates on when they plan on starting. We know the spring game is set for April the 27th, and I'm curious to see how many guys are actually going to go out and play, Jeff. We know that the injury list was pretty substantial after the championship in Frisco, and I know there's some guys that are probably not going to participate over the next month.
Well, and we'll detail it this week, I know, on your TV news and in the newspaper, but John Crock, for one, I think has a wrist. There's just up and down the lineup, there's a few guys here and there. Not real critical at this point because you're talking about a lot of guys who have played a lot of games in the last 2-3 years. I don't think that is going to be the major deal. I think the biggest thing to look for in spring football is Carson Wentz. Where does he fit in the plans? And some of the backups, because those backups will be needed as the season goes along.
Certainly in linebacker, I'm curious to see, and then at cornerback and up front as well. I'm curious to see how those guys progressed after a year of redshirting. Zach Johnson, I know, played. Jack Plankers, a guy like that. I'm really curious to see how they progress over the next month.
Yeah, and linebacker is going to be a big key, too. They made it through last year with 3.
Barely.
That was and they barely made it because those guys were hurt and beat up. They need depth at that spot.
Grant Olson was in the hospital 5 days before the FCS championship game. Now, the big news that we heard yesterday that obviously affects North Dakota State and the whole FCS division, Jeffrey, is something we've been talking about probably for a year, is the fact that Georgia Southern and Appalachian State made it official yesterday. They are leaving FCS and heading to the FBS as members of the Sun Belt Conference starting in 2014. They'll start playing eligible for the championship in 2015. What that directly means is they're ineligible, though, for the FCS playoffs this season. That's a huge blow to this division, no doubt.
Fasten your seatbelts, because this issue will not go away for the foreseeable future, probably for a long time. NDSU, I think, will go FBS. Now, that's an easy statement to make. When will it happen? At this rate, 5, 10 years, 15 years, I don't know. It's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen 2 years, 3 years. Who knows? A lot of it depends on who else leaves the division. Now, you're saying if James Madison goes, if Delaware goes, then maybe it's time to start thinking of having those conversations seriously. I disagree. I think it needs to be somebody more regional. I think if you look at Northern Iowa or Montana State or Montana, I think if you look at those 3, or UND then would follow suit with the Montanas. You're not going to see, as we see Georgia Southern there, you're going to see some I think, real serious migration issues in.
Well, here's the thing, and you can speak more to this than I can, where most critics of the Division I move say that NDSU got left behind in the D2 transition. The teams were left, and it was a watered-down division. Now I'm talking about 3 teams. Georgia Southern was in the semis last year. Old Dominion made the quarterfinals. And App State, we already know NDSU's trying to tie their all-time record this year with 3 straight titles. That maybe some opponents would say the division's already watered down now with those 3 teams going.
But was there concern in '84 when Troy State decided to go Division I? No. It happens, I think, on a regional basis. Northern Iowa left the North Central Conference. NDSU did not adhere to that red flag. Montana State left. Montana. You have all those, Western Illinois. You have teams like that within your region. And NDSU, I don't think, will make that same mistake again. They made the mistake in the 80s of letting that fly by and just let it slide. It's not going to happen again.
You made a great point on my radio show, and this is something that most of the people that watch our blog and read it and write on it know, that the new NCAA rule is you need a conference. You can't just say, like Liberty did a couple years ago, we're going FBS. Well, you need a league first, and that's why Liberty's sitting out there. Granted, they are a well-funded private institution that has a ton of money, but they don't have a conference to join into right now, and no invites appear coming. And that probably is the biggest hurdle, I think, more than regionalization is for NDSU, is they need a league. The Big Ten in the Mountain West, in the Pac-12, that's, in my mind, that's not happening. That's not ever happening.
Geography is not the friend of NDSU, my friend. It's we're sitting up here by Canada. And I don't know where you go. I mean, I've heard the MAC and the Mid-American conference.
Yep.
But they're so far east. Do you think Buffalo is going to want to immediately come to Fargo, North Dakota?
Here's my counterpoint to that now. Because in the Sun Belt, Georgia Southern's going to have to go to Moscow, Idaho to play a football game against Idaho. So travel, it doesn't mean anything anymore. It just doesn't.
Even to the MAC schools?
Well, the Sun Belt is less funded than the MAC. Way less funded, and they're going to make that happen. That's all I'm saying, though.
Well, okay,
You know?
maybe.
And your friends of the MAC, they have a nice television deal on ESPN every
Tuesday night
you know,
football, baby.
I'm saying
all right.
how much you've been a critic of it, it may become a reality. But that's the point: is that travel that's no longer an issue.
But seriously though, there's 2 points you have to make this on this FBS. One is the conference. Okay, will the MAC come this way? I don't know. That's a discussion for a long time down the road, maybe a few years down the road, but certainly not tomorrow. And stadium size.
Yeah, that's the next
NDSU's
point.
locked in at 18,700 seat stadium. Mid-American Conference stadiums are 25 to 30,000, if not more. To go to FBS, you need to raise more money, a lot more money. Scholarships go from 63 to 85. And if you're NDSU, you're not going to want to go to FBS and just make the bare minimums because you will not win. You cannot win on a bare bones budget.
Ask Western Kentucky about that they made that transition. App State, Jeff, averages 27,000 for their home games. That's more than only 2 of the Sun Belt teams they're going into. They also have a 6-3 record against the current Sun Belt team. So I guess in the counterpoint argument, NDSU can make that claim with the MAC. They've got a pretty good record against the current MAC schools, but also you bring up, and you've seen a couple of the MAC schools. You saw Ball State in person. You saw Central Michigan in terms of attendance and stadium-wise. Do they compare with the MAC schools? We've seen them on
pretty
ESPN,
close. I mean, this program, this NDSU program is very close, if not equal, if not above a few of those MACs.
And also in terms of spending as well with some of the MAC schools.
Sure, that's not the issue. The issue is not the program, its stature, its tradition. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
The issue is finding a league and getting a bigger stadium. You're not going to do that here in Fargo, North Dakota in the next 2 years.
On the flip side, as we look forward now to the 2013 season, with these 3 teams gone, we knew Old Dominion was ineligible since they started their transition at the end of last season. How much does this open it up for NDSU, the chance that a realistic three-peat now is with Georgia Southern and App State now out of the mix?
Well, I think you have to get through the Missouri Valley Football Conference first. The reason NDSU won its 2 titles is they were at home all the way through the playoffs. True. If that game last year was at Georgia Southern at Statesboro, Georgia, I don't think they win.
Yeah.
I don't think they win that game. So you can say, you can look at a national scope. I think that's getting too broad. For a three-peat to happen, you got to take care of business in the conference, and you have to be at home.
It also, though, is just to point out, with these teams gone, Georgia Southern and App State will still play their normal schedule. But also, if they go 9-2 or 10-1, which easily they could, that opens up some other spots, especially with the field now going to 24, for a 7-4 team to get in, a 7-5, since so many teams are playing 12 games this season. For a team off the radar to grab an at-large or win the conference, especially in the SoCon now with those 2 teams out of the mix.
That's going to be great, huh? New team coming to town? Why not? Let's get an education in what's out there.
Here we go, folks. Football season, it's only 160 days away from when we can start for the 2013 season. Spring football begins next week, and we'll be ready to cover it. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo, the latest edition of the Bison Video Blog.